Hey, what's up, guys? Today I want to talk about the opposition aspect in astrology. Finally, I've already done the square and the conjunction within the sort of conceptual framework that I'm working with right now. And I'm doing these three first because I think that the conjunction, the opposition, and the square are really the three primary major aspects in astrology. Now, the sextile and the trine are important as well, but I kind of see them as secondary major aspects. They're not minor aspects by any means, but they're secondary to the conjunction, opposition, and square. I just think that since most people who are into astrology aren't even into the aspects at all, they mainly focus on placements, and that could, partly be the fault of CoStar app, which doesn't talk about placements at all, unfortunately. I think there's so much left unsaid and unexplored among people who are into astrology, and I'm still pretty new at this, but the aspects immediately struck me as tremendously important, especially the conjunction, opposition, and square, because of the nature of them being 0 degrees, 180 degrees, and 90 degrees apart, respectively. And then all of the minor aspects are, well, as far as my journey would suggest so far, peripherally important, and something I'll save for later. I'm not even close to being there yet. But anyway, these aspects are important, and they're important because, of course, it's a general tenet of astrology that you can't isolate any single placement and make generalizations on the basis of that placement. In fact, that's a logical fallacy to do that, to make a general claim on the basis of one specific case. That's the fallacy of construction. And then the opposite of that is division, when you make a claim about a specific case on the basis of a generalization without actually showing a connection there, But aspects show connections. They show connections between two placements, and they say something about that energy that is produced by that relationship, whether it's between two people who have an aspect within their composite chart or within someone's self, between two placements which are parts of their own personality. It just gives you a more well-rounded and deeper and more complex explanation for the behaviors that relationship between placements produces. So anyway, whereas the conjunction is two placements that are close to each other and oriented to the same direction, kind of pointed in the same direction, maybe have the same goals, have the same energy, have the same style of expression. And the square, 90 degrees apart, are two placements that see past one another. When one is facing north, the other is facing east or west. So you have a small window of time in which you can grasp onto that other placement and see eye to eye with them before you head infinitely in different directions and see past one another, I just like this analogy of the placements being on the periphery, facing inward. We all have characteristics of all of the signs of the zodiac, whether it's in a direct way, as reflected in our chart, or in a sort of projected shadow way. And this gets me to where and why I think the opposition is the most interesting aspect. It's because there is the most space between two opposing signs, say Cancer and Capricorn, which my chart is dominated by, for example. They're 180 degrees apart. They're on opposite ends of the chart wheel. So although they're headed in different directions, they can't get to where they're going until they face one another. They're facing toward each other across that huge gulf. And they have to contend with one another to find balance and to find, to alleviate the tension that an opposition creates in order for both of them to achieve their potential. And again, this idea that I'm talking about relates to both your natal chart and relationships and synastry. So the opposition is all about balance. It's all about balance, achieving, a relief of that internal tension that an opposition produces. And once you find balance between those two seemingly opposite energies, really a new degree of self-awareness and maturity takes place. So an opposition sign like Capricorn, and Cancer, Capricorn is thought of as very, logical and structured and principled and, sort of a leadership role, and is very practical and so on and so forth. All the things that you would think would lead to success, But if someone's stellium has a big stellium in Capricorn and no Cancer placements to balance it with, then they're going to be very one-sided in most positions that they take on most things. They're going to lack that which Cancer can afford them. So they may attract energy that affords them that balance, that cohesion, that yin and yang, if you will. So, and the same thing with the converse, Cancer often seems to lack that structure and, logical way of going about formulating principles and practicality and things like that, all the things that Capricorn does well. So they seem very different, but there are deep similarities in that, unconsciously, subconsciously, we project what we have, but we attract what we need to complement us, to complete us, So you can do this work, even if you have a stellium in, say, Capricorn, and you don't have any Cancer bits. You can be more conscious of Cancer energy, people who you connect with, like why you might cross paths with someone who is more Cancer dominant. And that person will afford you a tremendous amount of value because they have what you lack, So I'm lucky enough, and anyone else who has a lot of opposition in their chart, well, opposition is seen as a difficult and damning thing sometimes, I understand, because it creates so much internal tension between two seemingly opposite energies. But, we already have the built-in infrastructure to achieve that internal balance and then to give that gift of ourselves to the world, I'm fortunate enough to have achieved a certain level of maturity that at least has led a lot of people to tell me that I have a very balanced sort of yin and yang personality, that I'm very integrated. So, I'm lucky that I have that nature side of me, but it's how I've nurtured it that has yield results that have led to those conclusions in people. And of course, the work is never done. And you definitely know that if you have a lot of opposition in your chart, that you will always have to contend with those opposing energies. And for either of those energies to achieve their individual potential, you have to get them to work together. You have to find balance between them. And as the result of that, you'll become a very wholesome and well-balanced and emotionally stable person, So anyway, I could go on and on about the opposition, but just wanted to put it into this framework of like how the placements are oriented, around the perimeter of the chart, and they're facing inward, as we all should. And if we're talking about one of our placements, we should be looking inward, right? And if we look inward, we'll find that in the center of our chart, all of our placements come together and intersect, So the opposition is the best example of that, because opposition has to intersect for either of those placements to achieve their potential. Anyway, so yeah, it's all about balance, yin and yang, alleviating that internal tug of war game that's always happening. And if you have a lot of opposition, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'll probably go on about opposition in future videos because it's my favorite. But that is all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to cut this video off. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one. Peace.